All right, it's 4:30, so I'll call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded by Whitman Hanson Cable Access for display tonight and then future viewing. And so I think we will get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and we're going to observe a moment of silence, especially noticing the absence of our dear friend Fred, who passed away. And I've asked Beth to prepare some remarks about Fred for us before our moment of silence.
So everybody here is well aware of Fred, and I have known Fred for many years. I got to know him really well as chair of negotiations for Whitman Hanson Education Association, in which we butted heads quite a bit. As you know, Fred was never one to give up his stance on how he felt about anything, and we all know that on the building committee. The building committee was his lifeblood. I know a lot of people felt that, he was kind of against it. I think what it was he was a little concerned about the town and money and things like that, but remember, he's the one who wanted the windmills on the school. So it's with heavy heart, I said, I'm going to miss Fred a lot, and I think we will on this committee. Fred brought a lot of information, a lot of intelligence to this committee, and as well as school committee, which I'll be talking about tomorrow night. I think it's pretty sad that we're not going to have his input, and he's not going to be there to break ground with us when we do. I think we will remember him that day, of course, and once the building is built, we will remember him again. But I want us to remember the input that Fred did have for all of us in this committee, and that he was willing to listen. Sometimes he didn't like what we had to say, but he did listen, and he did have respect for everyone, and I think we have great respect for Fred also. So with that, could we have a moment of silence for Fred, please? Thank you.
Okay, on to the agenda. And the first item on the agenda is the election of a new chair. And I think I'll turn this over to the superintendent to explain the ground rules for how this committee was set up and who's eligible to be the new chair of this committee.
Thanks, Kathleen. So when this committee formed as a subcommittee of the school committee, we wanted to have certain parameters that the school building project. So at a school committee meeting many years ago, this project has been going on for many years. We proposed a motion of the school committee that only a school committee member could serve as chair for the building project. That was voted, I believe, 9-1. And now with the absence of a school committee member, Fred's elected new chair of this committee, that person being a school committee member.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. So now I'll entertain a motion to select a new chair.
So moved.
Well, I need the person's name. We don't have a lot of options.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to select Beth Stafford as the chair of the Whitman Middle School Building Project.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. So I'm going to close the nominations, and I need to take a roll call vote because we have 2 members phoning in. So this is all in favor of electing Beth Stafford as the chair of the Whitman Middle School Building Project. George?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Crystal?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Beth?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Jeff. Justin?
Yes.
And Rich?
Yes.
It's unanimous. Congratulations, Beth.
Okay, thanks.
It's all yours.
Oh, okay. All right, so the next we have is introduction of a new member who happens to not be here tonight. Steve Boyce is unable to make the meeting because he was called back to work at JFK Building. So he is not going to be here today, but we'll welcome him as a school committee member on the committee. So he will be here.
I think he is online.
Oh, is he?
He
Steve
might
phoned
be
in.
online here, I don't know if he's on the phone.
Oh, he's online though? Oh, good. So Steve is on his computer and working.
Okay.
All right, so welcome, Steve. We're welcoming you.
Will he
Okay.
be part of the voice vote that we need to
Yes,
take?
he would
All right, he'll be able to.
Correct.
He'll be able to somehow
Yeah.
come on.
Mhm.
Right. Okay, so meeting minutes approval.
So if I can, just while you're pulling up the meeting minutes, with the election of the new chair and the new building committee member, we'll work with Jennifer tomorrow to get an update over the MSBA, adjusting our membership. We're actually at the same time working on officially adding Shirley to our team. We brought her forth to you folks a few weeks ago, so probably going to get both of those packages out. Certainly this week, probably as quickly as tomorrow, but we'll get that over to the MSBA.
Thank you. That, no extra meeting minutes. Okay. So next is OPM design update.
No, there are meeting minutes, Beth.
Oh, there.
Yes.
Oh, probably.
Sorry. So I'll
sorry.
move, it was a virtual meeting.
Oh, that's
It was a
right.
little bit hair
Yeah.
raising. We will go ahead to get through it.
Yes.
So I'll move the meeting minutes of July 23rd.
Do I have a second?
Second.
George?
Any questions? Any corrections?
Looked good to me.
Okay, all right. And we'll do the roll call. George?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Christo?
Abstain, I wasn't here for the meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
Bob? Josh?
Yes.
And
Kathleen, yes?
Yes. And me, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jeff? Okay.
Rich?
And Rich?
Yes.
And Justin?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's Stephen voting on
And
it.
Steve voting online?
Steve has the ability to vote now that you voted him on it. He can vote yes, no, or abstain.
Okay. So how do we vote?
I know, I see him on the shared screen. I'm not sure if he's on
I
the
don't have
on the
my screen.
phone call.
I
So,
don't see it either. No.
we would just say he did not vote.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, and that's it for meeting minutes. So next is the OPM designer update, and starting with, I guess, the financial review first?
Yes. So typically, sometimes when we do our updates, we have an OPM update and then a designer, but some of this is kind of meshing in a little bit, if you will, tonight. So we're going to start with the typical financials first, and then we'll work towards a couple of the other parts, which you'll see Shirley and I believe Julie and I kind of tag teaming it a little bit here. So the financials, you should have it in your packet. We do have the information up on the screen here. We always start by showing the overall summary page, but the reality is that the details is in the backup. Really, that's really what we typically focus on. But I always want to just start with the summary page, give people an opportunity if they have any questions, they can certainly ask it. But like I said, a lot of the details that we're really getting into are on the subsequent pages behind that. Looking at those subsequent pages, the first page that we would look at is budget adjustments. So this is basically anything we're doing to adjust the budget, move contingencies, things of that nature. You can see everything's grayed out here, so the good news there is we haven't needed to make any adjustments since we last met with you folks. So we're continuing to show the previous adjustments, but right now there's nothing new there. Unless there's any questions, I'll probably move on to the next section. This financial update is pretty quick tonight. Very similar to the budget adjustments, we're looking at our commitments. So commitments are any new contracts, new purchase orders, amendments to contracts, change orders, things of that nature. And again, you can see everything is grayed out here tonight, so there's nothing new to report here. We're the status quo as far as the contracts that we have, so there is no request for additional commitments at this time. Next section we have is our invoices. This one here, you will notice that we do have a number of items here that are not grayed out. in reality, it's really one set of invoices for AI3, and that's for all the work they did basically for the month of July. And then it's one set of invoices for Colliers, which is the work that we did for July, including our estimators doing the 60% estimate. So I believe that you'll see these numbers and these invoices coming back around during the warrant discussion in a little bit, and I can leave this up and bring it back up if needed. But again, it's just the typical invoices that we would have for the monthly reports there. Next, we have the cash flow, and we're continuing to monitor that. In general, if I zoom in here really close so you can see the numbers a little bit easier, we're just about $900,000 under our projections. Again, a lot of that has to do with contingencies. We always are projecting contingencies out. Those are coming in just a little bit. We're not really spending that, which is a good thing, but we always project that we might spend that. In addition, right now, the OPM fee is coming in a little bit under where we were projecting, so you have some savings there. So there's always ebbs and flows, but I think we're pretty much right on target. If we look at this in a graphic form, I can share that on this next page. Graphically, you can see once the contractor gets on board, the graph is going to start climbing a lot faster. But right now, we're just in that general range of where we were expecting. The only other financial update I would have is I know Steve's been working with the MSBA and getting pro-pay submissions squared away and getting the ability to have reimbursements going forward, and we'll be working on that from here going forward monthly with monthly updates to the MSBA. So again, happy to answer any questions if there are any, but it's a pretty quiet month overall for financials.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I just have one question, and that is, does this document, estimated project cash flow sheet, get updated in terms of the estimates? I know it gets updated in terms of what we actually spent, but is the projection really out through the end of the project?
So what I would typically say is we want to actually be able to measure what we were projecting against the actuals. So we don't update it regularly, but certainly when the contractor comes on board, we would update based off of their construction value. At major milestones like that, we would do an update. Potentially halfway through construction, we might do another update because contingencies might have been spent, things of that nature, and we want to adjust those contingencies into the designer fee, our fee, FF&E, the contractor, however they are. So we will do maybe 2 to 3 different updates between now and the end of the project, but it's not something that we would do regularly unless requested.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Any other questions?
Can you pull the microphone closer so those guys can?
Any other questions? Okay. Next, we have structural peer review selection. Is that Shirley?
So in previous meetings, we mentioned a request with the architects to review some structural peer reviews for the 90%. We went out to 3 bids, DM Berg Consulting, RSV Associates, and Flood Consulting. Flood did not entertain, but there's a backup to that email saying that they are not interested. That said, we went through both proposals, and with DMB and RSV, we recommend moving forward with RSV with the lower bid, given that they both provide the necessary proposal services that the architects need for the 90% service. So but again, there's proposal backups with this submission that we sent. If you have any questions, please let us know.
Just one other thing for that. This is a third-party structural review. It's actually required by Mass State Building Code. So they just want a structural engineer to basically look and double-check the math, if you will. So that's what they would be doing. And all 3 of these are companies that we've worked with in the past that do this type of work.
Okay. And we need a vote on this tonight, right? Okay.
We would need a vote, and the contract, it would be to issue a contract. Just so everybody knows, we did go through public procurement process because the value was low enough. We didn't do necessarily public advertising, but we went out to 3 bids. We solicited them, we got them back. We did it through a kind of a closed bid process.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
make a motion to move forward with RSV in the amount of $2,700 for the peer structural review.
Do I have a second? George seconded. Okay. George?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
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 Josh?
Yes?
Me, yes.
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Justin?
Yes.
And Richard?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right, so everybody here says yes. Okay, next on the agenda is pre-qualification.
Give me 1 second to
Sure.
screen squared away. Okay, it's right up. All right, so the first part of the discussion tonight is about the pre-qualifications and then the early packages. So pre-qualifications is something that we have to do for any project that is over $10 million. And we're going to be looking to pre-qualify both filed subcontractors as well as general contractors. This is a process that we have the ability to review them, make sure that they're qualified to do the work, and that we're willing to move forward with them if they are in fact the apparent low bidder on bid day. It is, like I said, it is required through Mass State Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 149. Part of that process is that we need to establish a pre-qualification committee. What we would like to be able to do is that pre-qualification committee typically has 2 members from the district. It can have more if you want, but it's typically 2. There's 1 member from the OPM staff, and we would recommend that Shirley be that member. And there's 1 member from the AI3 staff and the design team staff, and I think Darren is going to be the member for that. So it doesn't mean that Julie and Troy aren't going to be involved or that I'm not going to be involved, but officially when that pre-qual committee meets, they actually vote. And what they do is they come back and make recommendations too. So that they're not actually taking action. Their action is to make recommendations back to you folks. So it is good to have that voting membership, and that is a requirement through Mass General Law.
Okay, so we need 2 volunteers
That's correct.
from the committee.
And what I will let you know is that the process here is we go out to bid or to pre-qualification. We get a large number of packages back. Our team will do most of the heavy lifting here. We'll go through all the packages. We kind of organize them with detailed summaries. The pre-qual committee meets a couple of times to review those packages, and then we make a recommendation back. So the 3 meetings that we typically do with the pre-qual is, 1 is to establish the RFP packages that are going to be sent out, and then we typically have 2, maybe 3 meetings to review the actual packages after they've come in and make that recommendation back to you. And that's what we're showing up here on the schedule portion here. We're looking to try and define the pre-qual committee this month, work towards getting the RFQs ready between now and September, get those out for public posting. So that public posting would be advertising in the local newspaper, advertising in combis, and in the Central Register, and getting that information out. From that point forward, we would ask you folks if we thought we needed to do a site walk. If we were doing a renovation project, I would absolutely recommend that. With a new construction project, maybe the site walk is a little less critical, but we can also talk to the pre-qual committee about their thoughts on that. We get the packages in. It's probably a 2 to 3 month process to go through all of those packages. We call references, we do bank checks, we review the information they provided, and then we're going to be looking to come back to you as a group Thanksgiving, Christmas time period for a recommendation on a list to be pre-qualified. They get notified they're pre-qualified, and then when we go out to bid next year, only those bidders that are pre-qualified can bid as general contractors or filed subcontract bidders.
I have one question. Just as I read this paragraph, it says 2 representatives from the district. Is this the committee of the district, or is it the school district of the district?
I think it's typically the committee. It doesn't have to be committee members, but it's typically people on the committees.
Okay, do I have any volunteers? I have 2. Kathleen and Brandon? Anybody else? Okay, so I guess we will. Bob? You will too? Okay, so we need, can you have 3 or?
We can certainly have 3, yeah. We have to have a minimum of 2 because what they don't want you outnumbered by us.
Oh.
So you can certainly have 3 if you would like.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, that sounds great. Is that agreeable to everybody? Okay. All right, anybody else before we take a vote? Okay, so again, we have Kathleen, Brandon, and Bob, who are going to be on the committee. So, George?
Yep, yes.
Brandon? And
Yeah.
Crystal?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Me, yes. Mary Beth?
Yes.
Steve? Jeff?
Yes.
Justin?
Yes.
Okay, Rick?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So those are the 3 members, okay?
Great.
And amongst themselves, they'll decide on a chairperson, or?
So I'm going to actually ask if it's okay if we actually add Shirley and Darren as part of that as well, like officially as part of
Oh,
that
yeah,
vote.
absolutely.
So the 5 members will meet. What we'll do is we'll reach out to everybody separately from this meeting. We'll try and find a time where we can have the first meeting of that pre-qual committee, and we can talk about who the chairperson is at that point.
Good, excellent,
And-
thank you
and
very much.
We can work through a lot of those details with you.
Okay.
And what we'll do is, what we would typically do, I would say, is we have drafts of the RFQs, and I think we've actually included those in your packages already.
Yes.
Yeah, they're right here. We have
There's not a lot that has to be changed on those, but we would review those. Sometimes if a community has a specific issue that they've had in the past, or maybe something that they're more heavily into the environment or something like that, they might want to weight that a little bit heavier. But we've given you our typical weighting and what we would recommend in that draft, but we can certainly work through that process with the pre-qual committee if we need to make any adjustments. But we would like to the intent here would be contingent on that committee approval. We would like to start probably advertising and putting this out on the street potentially before we come back to this meeting again. I guess we haven't decided when this group is going to meet again, but it might come before that. And I just want to make sure that everybody's comfortable that we could have that pre-qual committee approve that and move forward without necessarily coming back here for a vote.
Oh, I think that sounds okay. I don't think that would be all right.
Okay, all right. I don't think we need a vote on that. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that everybody understands that.
Okay. Early bid package?
So the early bid package, what we're looking at here, I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past, is when we initially established the construction schedule, we had a longer schedule, and we had a discussion that we could potentially shorten that schedule, but there are certain items that just have long lead times. And in COVID, it was really bad. We're seeing improvement on that, but what we're seeing right now, specifically switchgear and potentially the generator as well, what we're seeing is that switchgear, for example, I'm on a project right now that from the day we order it, it's 54 weeks to get it. So it's over a year, and that's after you hire the contractor, you put the submittals in to make sure that we're ordering the right materials, which that takes some time. So it's really a long time. That was what was helping push our construction durations out. So we had some discussions internally with the design team and their sub-consultants, and we asked other things like HVAC equipment or other things that we want to consider. And right now, I think we've settled that it's switchgear and the generator. And what we'd like to do is do an early bid package on that. So we're going to bid that out as its own package, just supply of those materials. So the bidder would still do a submittal, the design team would still review that submittal and approve it to make sure that everything is what we're looking for, and they would be able to order it. And the reality is, starting that ordering process earlier, that 54 weeks is still going to be 54 weeks. we're just starting that maybe 6 months earlier than the contractors on board, which gives us the ability to get that here a lot quicker.
Yeah. I remember talking about it at the last meeting, and that was one of the reasons that was holding up Brockton Hospital, Justin told us. Brockton Hospital opened because it couldn't get the switchgear.
That's exactly right. So we've looked at some other things. We feel that there's other things that have maybe longer than ideal lead times, longer like the HVAC equipment, but it's longer than it used to be, but it's not long enough that we feel that we need to order it early.
Okay.
The other part of this is that the design team is still working through their design, and they have to finish their design, so we're really ordering some of this stuff before the design's ready. So it's a cost-benefit analysis here of, what is the benefit of it and what is the potential impact for their design. For example, if we order switchgear, we order it with all the breakers on the left side. If at some point they figure it would be better to flip the room around, you might not be able to do that. So they have like a parameter that they have to hold to. But we feel it's pretty minimal impact as far as that goes. We are continuing to develop that design, and I think the design team and your subconsultants are kind of paying a little extra attention to that now because we know we're going to lock it in a little bit sooner.
That's right, yeah, they would be oversizing the switchgear a little bit just in anticipation of if anything were to be modified for the duration from October to December and the completion of the rest of the design.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, so the goal here is that we'll probably be coming to you at the next meeting with a bid package ready, asking for us to, again, allow us to go out on the street with that. We're doing some of the final reviews of that right now. Construction is typically under 149, Chapter 149 from Mass General Law. We believe that this procurement of materials is going to be under 30B. It's a slightly different contract requirements, but it's very similar overall. And we're also looking to see who might be interested in this prior to going out to bid. We can always give a heads up that something's coming down the pike. Once we go out to bid, there's rules and regulations about contacting potential bidders, but we can work towards making sure people are aware that this is going to come out before it does.
Okay, thank you.
Right? Okay, so switching gears a little bit to our design update. You've seen the schedule many, many times. I'll just point out that the next milestone that we're working towards is essentially that early bid package. On the same day that we are anticipating receiving those drawings, those will also be drawings that we receive from all of our consultants so that we could send those to our cost estimators for the next round of cost estimating. So it all worked out where I think September 12th is the date that we'll receive updated drawings from all of our consultants. And regarding electrical, that'll also double as our early bid package drawings. So we'll keep you updated on that in our next meeting. 60% CD submission, as you are all well aware, went out August 1st. We provided the committee with a link to that full submission, which includes project specification manuals, the drawings from all of the trades, and a 600-plus page report. The MSBA has received those documents and is currently reviewing those. And I touched on the activities for the next phase, the 90% construction documents phase at our previous meeting. So I provided this again for reference as a check-in on where we are. Of course, all of the drawings, as I mentioned, are continuing to be developed. And I just wanted to give an update on two of the items with the red arrows tonight. So on the next slide, our recap of August activities includes an update on those two items. So the first being regarding permitting reviews. Earlier this month, our civil engineering firm, Vertex, submitted a notice of intent to Whitman Conservation Committee and Mass DEP, primarily giving them reaching out regarding the project and its proposed work and methods as it relates to the wetlands. So essentially that notice of intent is very similar to a permit. So now those two entities have information on the project that they're reviewing. Same timeline, same civil engineer, Vertex, Also submitted for a site plan review through the Whitman Zoning Board of Appeals, primarily with that being very similar to any other variance, request for a variance. So in this case, one example was that the building is about 3 to 5 feet higher than what Whitman's zoning law is. So instead of it being, so currently the zoning board would be reviewing whether or not to grant a variance for the project being a couple feet taller than that 37-foot threshold. We don't anticipate having any issue regarding this approval, but we will continue to await the response from all these entities. On the other hand, we did receive word back from the Architectural Access Board regarding variances that we had applied for on the interior of the building, both being related to handrails, and those have been granted for the project. And then next up is there's a meeting with the plumbing inspector this week, as coordinated from our plumbing engineering consultant. He plans to review in person some of the drawings and the fire protection and plumbing systems with the plumbing inspector in town, just as a check-in to make sure that we are in compliance with the jurisdiction. Any questions on those activities? Great. And then moving on to more design-related items, we have a couple images of, you've seen these renderings before. We've updated them with a couple design updates. So primarily wanting to point out tonight that we've been working with our structural engineer for the entire structural framing system of the building. Something that came up was being able to support those entry canopies that are a feature on the front of the building. We went through a few design iterations, some that involved having columns that go from the canopy down to the sidewalk. And as a result, we settled on the sort of kicker supports that go back to the roof structure, and we feel that this is actually a really pleasant balance to the front of the building, and it also sort of brings that attention to the entries in a more positive way. And you can see that the both renderings have been updated, and of course welcome to any feedback on that, but we think it's a positive direction to meet both structural requirements and to add a little bit of attention to the entries of the building.
Is there only one on the right?
There is, yeah. So where the canopy ties into the massing of that auditorium piece, it doesn't necessarily need the additional support.
Interesting.
But we could certainly look into it if we felt like it needed some balance. Great. And then also around the site, we are aware that the add alternate package previously included all of the renewable energy system. We had mentioned in the previous meeting that there'd be an advantage to breaking this system into 2 parts, so that at the time that the bid results come in, the committee could essentially determine if they wanted to accept part of the system or the entire system. So we have included this slide for 2 reasons. The first being the rooftop solar will identify as add alternate 1A, and any of the solar on the 2 site canopies, we plan to identify that as add alternate 1B. And I mentioned that just so that when we get into the next round of cost estimating, we'll make sure that those designations are carried through. Excuse me. And the second item I wanted to bring up on this page was that we've been working previously with we've had an energy consultant providing updated reports for the project as we move through, consistently balancing energy consumption with energy production. And so our next step is to really continue to work on closing the gap between how much of the renewable energy system on site can cover the anticipated consumption for the building. There's about a 10% difference there. We'll continue to work with our solar designer as well as our mechanical and electrical engineers to really hone in on the efficiency of those systems. all while keeping in mind some of the thresholds of the Inflation Reduction Act so that we can find a balance between what's going to be most effective to you as the client in terms of incentives, but also in your energy, covering that energy consumption. And I've additionally included this slide with steps to receive the tax-free payments from the IRS for clean energy tax credits. So we know we've previously mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act as it relates to geothermal systems, but there are additional clean energy tax credits as part of the IRA that cover solar energy and the energy storage system. So that would come into play post-construction. So we're looking at spring of 2028 when construction is complete, and those, hopefully the solar canopies are installed, and that's when the district would then sort of pursue filing for those tax credits. And tonight also wanted to provide a LEED update, sort of in the same vein of thinking of all of the renewable energy. And just to say that we are still on target for that LEED Silver certification, targeting just above the 50 to 59 point threshold with 61 points currently. I would point out that the points for renewable energy are still in that maybe column, which would of course be a result of what the bids show and whether or not the committee determines to move forward with the ad alternates or not. If we are able to include the ad alternates onto the project, the likelihood of achieving LEED Gold certification certainly becomes more attainable. And that was everything in a nutshell. If anyone has any questions.
The 10%, what we're saying right now is that the solar that you showed theoretically can cover about 90% of the anticipated energy use. We're not quite at zero right now, so we're getting really close there. Right?
Yes, yeah, so that was a little bit intentional where we were aware that the Inflation Reduction Act actually has a threshold for the size, the output size of your solar energy system. And so we are intentionally keeping it a little bit in that sweet spot where it was just below that threshold so that to maximize the baseline 30% credit that could be achieved by the committee. And so now that we have that information in an updated energy report, we'll also be working behind the scenes with our solar designer and our HVAC consultant. We have a few strategies in mind where we think we can, I guess, reduce strain on the building system while adding additional PV to sort of make those balance out. As a result, if the building energy systems are sort of more efficient based on their layout and some of the aspects of lighting, power density in our building envelope, if we're able to continue to refine those where it reduces that consumption, then you'll see that what the impact that the renewable energy system is having on canceling out that consumption, we can start to close the gap. I know that was a lot of words, but yes.
Yes.
And I just want to say that Justin had contacted me earlier today to ask questions, and Julie, you've done a nice job of answering those questions thank you. Filled in the gaps, so
Oh,
thank
great.
you.
Yes, and of course, as you all know, it's still, many of the phases prior to this are continued analyses and the updated reports. So we're getting closer and closer to really producing the most efficient outcome.
Thank you. Okay. Back to Mike.
I have maybe just one last thing related to that. Just as when we talk about reimbursables from the MSBA, we always talk about reimbursables of the eligible costs. When Julie's talking about trying to get that net zero energy and net zero cost are two different things. So we might be spending more money in the winter because we're using more power in the winter, and you might be able to sell more power back in the summer when you're not using as much. So I think it's great news here that we're working towards that net zero, but I just don't want people to come back and say, I thought we were net zero, we weren't going to have an electric bill. So there's still always that bill that's out there, but we're working towards that net zero energy.
It's a good point, and anytime we reference consumption or production, it's based on the annual total, so.
Right.
we should be clear.
Right, so that annual total has peaks and valleys, but the PVs are going to kind of generate a pretty consistent amount of power. A little bit less in the winter when there's less daylight hours, a little bit more in the summer when there's more things of that nature.
Thank you. Okay, invoices?
So the invoices, I can bring that sheet back up if you give me 1 second. There we go. So these invoices were sent over earlier in the week so that they were included in your package, and those are the invoices that we'd be looking to include in the warrant, I believe, that's going forward tonight. So it's two separate invoices, or three separate invoices from AI3, but it's all for the one-time period. It's just broken out into basic services, additional services, and reimbursables. And then it's one invoice from Colliers with two line items, one for estimating and one for our typical services.
Any questions on the invoices? Okay, we'll do one at a time.
Oh, you want to do them separately?
Yeah, it doesn't, I guess we should probably do AI3 first.
AI3 first? Okay, so I move that we pay the AI3, it's three separate invoices, but one sum total of $866,603.88.
Second. Doing the math.
Second, George? Okay. All right, George?
Yes?
Brandon?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Me, yes. Mary Beth?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jeff? Justin?
Yeah.
And Rich?
Yeah.
Okay. That one's done. And for the next one, excuse me,
Colliers?
Colliers, yep.
I move that we pay a total of $63,940.25 for Colliers' two invoices.
Second, George. Okay, George?
Yes?
Brandon?
Yes.
Chris still?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. Josh? Kathleen?
Yes.
Me, yes. Mary Beth? Steve?
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff? Justin?
Yes.
And Rich?
Yes.
Very good. So invoices are set.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, do we have anybody here for public comment? Seeing no one, going to the next meeting date. I see you have three proposed here.
So I think we weren't sure with school starting and things of that nature, with the Labor Day holidays and stuff, how we might be affecting other dates. So I think we were looking towards the third or fourth week of the month. I think the 16th or 17th was a Monday or a Tuesday, and then the 24th was a Tuesday. I don't know that we have anything strong pushing us to one or the other. We talked earlier about the pre-qual subcommittee, the fact that we have that established that allows us to move forward with that, and we'll be bringing back the early package at the next meeting.
Okay, George?
Yeah, I would just, I think with the start of school and the open houses and the things of that nature, I think the 24th would be a good date. That's all right with it.
I agree too, because we're usually towards the end of the month anyway, so, let's keep it going on a Tuesday and keep everything there. So is that okay with everybody?
Excellent.
On this part?
4:30 here.
4:30.
4:30 on the 24th. Do we have any other questions, concerns? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, so motion by George, second by Kathleen. George?
Yes?
Brandon?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Josh? Kathleen?
Yes.
Me, yes.
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jeff? Justin?
Yeah.
And Rich?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.